But speaking about stepfathers, next up is Stepfather 2.
We were literally not talking about stepfathers at all.
That's the beauty of segues. Stepfather 2 from 1989, which pretty much follows immediately from the first movie. Jerry Blake, the stepfather, is in an asylum and he's dreaming, about the events at the end of the first Stepfather movie. Him, going through the ringer as it was. So he's in this institution, he's able to get this one psychologist to trust him, and over the course of, I'm not sure if it's a few weeks or a month, he's able to manufacture a breakout. So he escapes from the institution, and doing what he does, he wants to try to find another wife and another perfect family. So he goes down to California and under the guise of being a family therapist, and meets the perfect woman, and then things go from there. So this movie's decent. It's now, if you guys remember, I gave the first Stepfather a very glowing review because I've always loved the movie, and this movie's nowhere near as good, but it's still a pretty decent movie, mainly because you have Terry O'Quinn, doing his stepfather role, which I think he does such a great job. I mean, there's a few scenes in this I want to talk about in particular. But before I talk about how this movie is better than some of you might think it is, what were your thoughts on this one, Chucky?
Well, I can't remember the exact rating I gave the first one. It was either a 6 or a 7. I think it might have been a 6. And I enjoyed this more or less on the same level as the first one, to be honest. I mean, if I had to pick one over the other, I guess the first one, I would say, is maybe a little better than this one, but I'm not a huge fan of the series so far, so I mean, my opinion might not mean as much to others who do enjoy this series. I guess the first thing is, I mean, right at the start we see the title, Stepfather 2, Make Room for Daddy. Sounds like a bad porno, to be honest. At least these days it does. Maybe at the time they didn't anticipate how the word daddy would be used 10, 20, 30 years later, but there you are. It to be honest, it's just more of the same to me. I mean, it's, yes, different characters, slightly different events, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. He's, trying to get a new family, and things happen, and yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I find these movies so engaging is just the very traditional character that the stepfather is, trying to be. He talks about in this movie the importance of tradition. He doesn't even want to sleep with his fiance before they get married.
That cracked me up, actually. The part where he's like, I even had sex with you. I'm like, dude, that was like probably the best part of the process, and he's acting like it's the worst part.
Hey, that's not what he's in. He just wants the family. He doesn't need the physical intimacy. But I think he is such an interesting character, and this movie shines a little light on it. He mentions in conversations with the woman's kid, a little bit about his father, and I always found it just intriguing whatever life this guy had to become this way. There's also another scene which I think is pretty, not necessarily funny, but it just goes to show the type of guy he is, when he's having some sort of Rice Krispies knockoff, and he just puts his ear to the cereal so he can listen to that crackling pop, just like something that most kids would do, and he just takes the joy in the innocent little things, and hey, you can't blame him for that.
And like most kids, he was accruing a nice collection of pubes there in the mental facility. I don't know what the hell he was doing there.
Well, I think that was for his fake mustache.
Oh, yeah, okay, I didn't really put that together, but okay. Actually, let's talk about this whole disguise and epic manhunt by the police force. Because, look, when he escapes, I mean, it seemed like a pretty simple escape after he just killed the doctor and that one guard, and that seemed to be it. But after he leaves, we hear on the news how it's like one of the biggest manhunts for this guy. And they show the news at least twice in this movie. Like once before he gets to this new neighborhood that he goes to. And also the lady that he ends up marrying is literally watching the news. Why don't they show a picture of this guy in the news? It's not like he disguises himself at all throughout the movie, aside from wearing a mustache in one scene. So he goes out, buys groceries. He doesn't live all that much of a secretive life in terms of people seeing who he is. I mean, doesn't that sound ridiculous that he just walks around like a normal person and no one seems to notice? No one sees him on the news outside of maybe one small crappy picture in a newspaper that no one looked at?
Yeah, I feel like if I was in his situation, I probably would have gone maybe more closer to the East Coast and stay on the West Coast, but that's just me.
I mean, I'm not someone who really gets hung up on details like this, because if you're watching a horror movie, like a slasher movie, you kind of just suspend your disbelief in a lot of the things, but this movie plays itself somewhat more serious, and something like that just doesn't make any sense. Like, he would be caught within one day if he's not disguising his actual look, which he doesn't do.
I don't really have anything to refute that. You just have to track it up to horrible authorities and pretty terrible manhunt. I'm assuming they would have, because I believe the institution was in Oregon and he went down to California, so I'm assuming the Oregon police told the California police, hey, you better look out for this guy, but it's possible.
I mean, it's on the national news, I'm guessing, so, you think they'd have a picture up and everyone, at least some people in the neighborhood, out of all these different women who are doing these classes with him because he's acting as some sort of doctor, at least one of them would have seen him on the news, had the news shown a goddamn picture of his face.
Well, maybe the media, but I've got nothing. I would just say that Terry O'Quinn's character is very lucky in that both the media and the authorities are both pretty atrocious.
I'll just say one more point while I'm on this. It doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the movie. I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying it's one of those things that's just so ridiculous. So, there you go. And
I actually, somewhat related, so one of the women who is in his sessions, she's also a married woman, so she finds out, or tries to find out a little more about this guy, because she's friends with the woman that he's going to marry. So, this is a somewhat funny scene in which she confronts him saying, hey, here's a picture of you from your yearbook basketball team. It's like, well, and I don't see you here. Well, a man can change a lot in 15, 20 years. It's like, oh yeah, they can't change this much, and the whole basketball team's a bunch of black guys. Which, it's funny because you can tell from Terry O'Quinn's expression, it's like, oh god, well, have to just kill this woman now. And, like, that scene's not even necessarily played for laughs. It's more like a dramatic type thing, but it seems like that, I don't know, just bring a little more enjoyment to me.
All he had to do at that moment, when she shows a picture, all he had to do is say, Black Lives Matter. And then, what's she gonna say? Anything she says as a rebuttal to that is totally gonna get shot down by everyone.
Well, unfortunately, this movie might predate that movement by like 25 years.
I mean, it's worth a shot.
And I want to point out, I guess, two more quick things. One, and I actually didn't notice this when I first watched the movie, and I've seen this one twice, but I didn't notice this when I watched it last. But that the kid is the kid of the woman's played by Jonathan Brandis, who might not be a name people recognize, but he's also the same kid who played Bill Dunbar from the 1990 It miniseries.
Yeah, well, my wife had like a major crush on him when she was much younger, so she came out while I was halfway through this movie, and as she sat down, I was like, try not to have an orgasm. She's like, what are you on about? And then he pops on and she's like, oh.
Well, he is a decently good-looking boy, I guess. um, so I did find that somewhat interesting though, and one other thing, I find it somewhat amusing that the whole reason that this doesn't work out, aside from the fact that the authorities never catch on to him, is the fact that this Stepfather's overconfidence, one with the wine and two with the whistling, just completely ruins everything for him. Like, if he had just not brought that wine home, he might have been okay.
Another thing in this movie that just, I don't know, is just something worth mentioning, is just the woman that he marries. There's something about her that, I don't know, maybe it's the blue eyes, something just really weird about her, but all I can keep thinking throughout the movie is how much she looked kind of like she's like a budget ass Kirstie Alley. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I don't know, look quite similar. So I don't know, it's just one of those things that just kept bugging me throughout the movie. I'm looking at her, I keep thinking of who she looks like, and while we're on the topic of her, just, going back to that sex scene could have been a little hotter, don't you think?
Okay, it could have been, but these movies were never about that type of thing, unfortunately.
Well, look, that might have helped bump up the rating a little bit.
See, if you want your sleazy movies, there's also sorority house massacre movies out there. The Stepfather is a high class.
I think this movie's a little bit better than Sorority House Massacre 2, which we just discussed earlier, but there's never any reason to not have a hotter sex scene in the movie.
Yeah, I probably don't have any reply to that.
I mean, come on, make room for Daddy. Come on, you gotta have some more. Come on.
Yeah, there's actually one small thing I wanted to point out, and I think I should be done. And I might have mentioned this earlier. The woman who played the character who found out about his lying about his past was the same main character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the Stretch DJ woman.
I was trying to think of where I saw her before.
Yeah, and it took me a little to see that because I knew she looked familiar. I just couldn't place it, and then it hit me and it's like, oh hey, it's the same woman. So I definitely thought that was interesting because she is always a fun character. I mean, I think aside from that, though, this movie, I think it's decent. It almost has sort of like a TV movie feel to it, which I think the third movie actually is a TV movie, but this one wasn't. So, I think this movie's decent. I don't think it's nearly as good as the first movie, but if you like the first movie, it's still worth watching. I would probably give this a bit above average if I'm being a bit generous. So like maybe a 7.5 out of 10, but I'll probably give it like a 7 out of 10. It's a decent movie, it's just not great. And I think the only reason why I like it as much as I do is because I think the character that Terry O'Quinn plays as Stepfather is such an interesting character. And unfortunately, that's not going to save the third movie when we get to it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought this movie was okay, and like I said at the beginning, it's kind of more of the same of the first movie, and I understand if people enjoy the first movie significantly more than this one, but for me, wasn't a huge fan of the first one, so this one, it's more or less the same in terms of enjoyment, so 6 out of 10 is what I give it. It's okay. I didn't mind watching it. I did enjoy seeing how he would escape from the mental facility that he's at. Just because you could tell he was kind of buttering up that psychologist guy and just seeing exactly where he's going to go. I had a feeling it'd have something to do with whatever he was making because they just kept going back to that scene a couple of times and I was thinking, there's a reason why they're going back to showing him making this thing, this house thing, so... And then, just as he smashes it, and he's still trying to act like that's a... It's just weird. It was interesting just to see how he put that all together. I can't see someone doing that in real life, but, you know, hey, it's a movie, so whatever.